Hi, everyone, and welcome to, let's try to get this right this time,
You can do it.
the Hanukkah Erotica Book Club with Razel and Malia.
Yep.
I'm Razel, and I'm joined by Malia, my co-host and stepsister.
Hello.
Hey, Ma.
Hi.
It's been a little while. We're like a half a week, a little bit. Normally we are every other week. We gave ourselves an extra week to read this very long book, actually.
This book was long.
Which we'll be discussing.
Yes.
But just quickly, Hanukkah Erotica is a podcast where Malia and I talk about Jewish romance books and all things Jewish romance, shows, movies, and we're here tonight discussing The Summer of Lost Letters by Hannah Reynolds. And listeners might remember a book we read right at the start called 8 Nights of Flirting by Hannah Reynolds, which took place on Nantucket. And this is the prequel to that. That was really a standalone, though, but you didn't really.
Right, that was a Hanukkah romance, and this is a summer romance. Hence the positioning.
Exactly. And like I said, it was super long. I guess that's where we're starting.
Was it longer than 8 Nights of Flirting? It felt longer to me, but
I don't know, but 8 Nights of Flirting was also very long. We can find that out easily, but they were both very long books.
Right. And interestingly, I think I listened to 8 Nights of Flirting as an audiobook, but this one I read. So maybe it was just like the different experience of the read versus the listen. But
yes.
Yeah, this one it was lengthy, certainly. Also, like the whole concept of like it's the same family. It's a prequel, so you're focused on the same like wealthy sort of storied Jewish family that lives on Nantucket, and I already knew about them, so I guess it felt like a good amount of repetitive information. I guess I'll start by saying that. Like it circled back to a lot of the stuff we learned already. Did you feel that?
In a way that felt repetitive, you're saying?
A little bit to me. I think it felt a little bit like, okay, I know this already.
Right. Yes, I think you're right. It did feel repetitive, but I needed the refresher.
I guess you're probably right.
So it didn't bother me.
Okay.
I really needed the refresher.
Right. Okay.
We're at Golden Doors again. We're back on Nantucket. By the way, 8 Nights of Flirting was 400 pages, and this was 384.
Okay. So comparable.
And I do think it's cool. Like, it is cool to write a really long YA book, because I just imagine a teenager having more to read, and that, like, I feel like the Harry Potter books being longer and longer was exciting and compelling to readers of Harry Potter.
Yeah, it's fun, and it really draws out the sort of, like, I feel like a lot of these and again, as I've said before, but for our new listeners, I'm sort of new to the YA genre, so really my entire experience of YA is books we've read for this podcast, but I feel like a lot of YA books so far center on this sort of, like, will they, won't they, like, sexual/romantic tension that's building, and this book, like, really gave it time to build. Like, you were really like, okay, guys, like, let's get going here.
It was a slow burn.
It really was. Like, it was like, and then the next day. Like, but that was good. I mean, like, I felt the chemistry with them. Like, I wanted them to just to make it happen already. So I was there with them.
It was a slow burn, but I agree. I felt it for them.
Totally.
And their chemistry. So, okay, so here's what the book's about.
Please.
You may remember, but probably if you read 8 Nights of Flirting, you remember that there was a cousin of Shira Barbanel named Noah. Because Shira Barbanel is the main character in 8 Nights of Flirting, right?
Yes.
Shira, okay.
Yes.
So Shira Barbanel in 8 Nights of Flirting had a cousin named Noah Barbanel. You may remember that because, like, she was also, there was a lot of stuff going on with Shira's cousins in general. They were doing shows, and Shira had one other older cousin around her age, and that was Noah. Noah is the love interest in this book. He's not the main character. He's right. He's the love interest. So the main character is Abby, and
who was also in 8 Nights of Flirting.
Right. Yeah. She was right. She was in it too. I forgot about that because they were already together.
Yeah, she was like the girlfriend of the cousin, right?
Exactly. And so this is the story of how Abby and Noah meet, and how Abby gets connected to Nantucket in general and
Yes.
her whole history. So it starts off with this letter. The book's called The Summer of Lost Letters, and this book is about these letters that Hannah found, and they're letters from a man.
Letters that Abby found.
Yeah, would I say Hannah, the author?
I think you said Hannah, yeah.
Yeah, Hannah, the author. Abby, this girl Abby, who's from
Right.
a small town in southern Mass.
Right.
And she finds these letters that a man named Edward wrote to her grandma. But it's not her grandpa.
Right.
It's not her grandpa, or to her knowledge, the father of her mother. She finds like very romantic love letters.
Yeah.
And sad.
Sad, but also kind of sexy. Like,
Yes. Sad,
steamy.
sexy, steamy.
All of it.
Very emotional,
Right.
heavy duty love letters that her Oma received many years ago. And her Oma was a Holocaust survivor, and apparently wouldn't really identify as a Holocaust survivor exactly because of how young she was when she escaped, but
Right.
came here as a 4-year-old child alone with no family, and everyone in her family died in the war. So this is kind of how it starts. And Molly and I often talk about how Jewish are books and what are the Jewish tie-ins to the book. But there's this very big piece of this book about her being a third-generation Holocaust survivor and her Oma being this Holocaust survivor who didn't speak about all this trauma and coming to being alone here.
Yeah,
Right?
there's a lot of Jewish history in this book.
Yes. The Kinder transport, honestly,
Yeah.
things I didn't know about.
Right.
Really.
And Abby's like really doing like the genealogy hunt. Like she's writing to archives. Like the whole idea is Abby finds these letters and she's like, I want to know more. Who is this man? Does he have a key to like more about my grandmother's like hidden past that she never knew and never told us and whatever?
Right. And she starts going down this rabbit hole of trying to figure out who this man is. She figures out it was Edward Barbanel.
Right.
She does research and finds out that he lived at Golden Doors in Nantucket, which is the home of the Barbanels in Nantucket, that big house that Shira Barbanel was alone in with that guy Tyler in 8 Nights of Flirting.
Right. And put out all the like holiday decor with him in that opening scene.
Exactly.
Yep.
And so that I think we both pictured as like Downton Abbey, but in Nantucket, but like with like hydrangea.
Totally.
Like,
Christmas Downton Abbey, for sure. But
Christmas,
like put a Jewish
Christmas
star on
beach, Christmas beachy Downton Abbey.
Right.
Downton Abbey meets the Hamptons.
Right, but that was like winter in a town that's like mostly occupied by summer visitors, whereas this is like summer prime time.
Exactly.
Right.
Okay. So Abby kind of discovers who he is and is just like, I'm spending the summer on Nantucket. Done. She also has a great relationship with her parents that comes up a lot.
Yeah.
And her mom is like interested in what she's going to find and curious and supportive of this. But Abby gets a job. Have you noticed, this is probably such a lukewarm take that everyone notices, but so many romance books involve someone who loves books, someone who works in a bookshop or is a writer or loves. It makes sense to me because like they must be autobiographical to some degree.
Right. And
it's like they have a love for books. A lot of these characters.
That's true. That's a good point.
And
if that feels true to me, but now I'm trying to think of who else that's true of, like other books that we've read. I feel like was the woman in Hot Rabbi into books? I feel like there was some stuff about that. I'm trying to just remember what you're saying rings true to me. I'm just trying to remember other examples of it, but I think you're right.
I have to think about our books versus all of the books I read in general.
Right. But it's a general trope, like sort of.
Yes, like generally. By the way, even in going by coastal, I feel like, is there a bookstore involved or?
Oh, yeah.
No, I don't know. Nick Girl.
There was a coffee shop.
Right there.
Oh, they had a book club. Yeah, she and her mom had a book club.
Right. Oh, yeah, she loved books, right? Her and her mom had a book club. They connected on it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you're right. It's sort of like, right, it's the the author sees himself in the story and they're trying to write in something relatable.
I think so. Anyway, she really loves books and also history in a deep way that I'm sure this has to be a lot of Hannah. There's no way Hannah Reynolds, I meant Hannah when I said that. There's no way that Hannah Reynolds doesn't have a deep love of history the way that this character Abby did, because you could never write this book
Totally.
without really caring and doing the research.
Once again, like extremely self-possessed, sort of like wonderful, I think overall really positive portrayal of a 17-year-old who's like tracking down history, like writing to archives, chasing clues about the Kinder transport. I don't know, just like, again, very like mature, I feel.
I totally agree. I also like discovering the friendships that she makes and the job. You know, she gets a job. So she goes to Nantucket for the summer. She gets an apartment. She shares a apartment with a few people, an older woman, a whole house. Someone has a room for her, and she stays there.
Right.
And she gets a job in a bookshop, and she immediately kind of makes a little group of friends through her roommate. And I like their initial first. I like the way she describes Nantucket and the summer vibes, and she's describing how beautiful it is, and all the guys in like their Nantucket Reds, which is obviously just a bunch of guys in like pink vineyard vines looking shorts, or
Totally.
I don't know, polos, right?
Definitely polos.
She describes them really well, and they also embrace her right away, and they start having this conversation that I like and really want to have with you, where they're like, if you could only have 3 cheeses for the rest of your life, what would they be? But I love that because I feel like it's so high schooly. Like, that's such a fun high school party, kind of like silly party chat.
Totally.
So
it's like very specific. You have like a lot of feelings about it, strong feelings about it.
Yeah, and then, you know, they're all hanging out, and maybe some people are drinking, and they're like, you know, I would have mozzarella and brie. They're like, you can't have brie without baguette, and you can't have baguette because you're in outer space in this scenario. So
Right.
she comes in and she's like, what about cream cheese? And then she feels like immediately embarrassed. Does that even count as a cheese? And they're like, oh, cream cheese, good point. I couldn't not have bagels. Like, just like really high schooly, but also like a funny high school type.
Totally.
I appreciate that. What 3 cheeses would you have?
Good
if
question.
you could only have 3.
Right. I'm going to have to say cheddar. I love a good cheddar, like just in terms of like a, you know, accessible but enjoyable
Versatile.
on its own.
And versatile.
Versatile, yeah, exactly. I wouldn't say cream cheese. Like I like a cream cheese, but I could do with it. If I never had cream cheese again for the rest of my life, it's no huge loss for me.
Right,
personally.
like I will have it many times for the rest of my life, God willing, but
Please.
I agree. If I don't, it's okay.
It's fine. So I won't.
Top 3, no.
It's no tragedy. Right. No, definitely not top 3. It is. I mean, I would say mozzarella just because I feel like I would need pizza. Like I feel like to never be able to have a pizza with a mozzarella on it seems like a tragedy to me. I like pizza. I mean, we're New Yorkers. We love pizza. So I'm gonna say mozzarella
and cheddar.
Mozzarella and cheddar are definitely 2 immediates. And then what's the third?
Okay, you keep thinking. Here are some that I love.
Yeah, go for it. Some. It's 3. It's 3, Rachel.
Well, here's the thing. Like, I love ricotta cheese.
Okay.
And I put it on things, and I love ricotta toast, and I love a scoop of ricotta in pasta.
Versatile.
I just really love it, and I would miss it.
You should select it then.
You know, and I love parm. I love Parmesan. And I love shredded Parmesan in salads, and I love it on pasta. And I don't know. It's like, would I miss cheddar? Of course. I also like just like really good cheeses that you could put on crackers. Like I like a Gouda on a cracker. I love brie. I love burrata. I don't know what to say here. It's hard. 3's hard, and it was hard in the book for them, but it was part of how she connected with this group of friends, which I really liked.
Yeah, that was very cute. That was also like you believed it. That was the good thing about these characters is like they were mature, but they weren't like so mature that you were like, are these teenagers or are these 30-year-olds? Like Do you know what I mean? I
They
felt a
were they
little.
felt more believable to you than Going by Coastal's
Yes,
characters.
going by Coastal, I was like, these. I love that these are supposed to be how teenagers are, but I question if it really is how they are. Here, she was like, she was passionate about her history and her family and her values, and she stuck with them. But also, she was like, should I wear this sexy bikini or am I self conscious? And also, they were doing this kind of flirting that was like that I felt like was very believable of high school flirting, which was kind of like always like on the verge of insulting the other person, sort of, where it was like they. I felt like this was very true to me, where it's like you're trying to be flirtatious, but you don't really know how to do it without kind of veering into sometimes being mean or like insulting. Do you know what I mean? And so they were
I
always
know
sort
what
of
you mean.
like.
I don't think that was the way I flirted, but I know what you're
I
describing.
think I'm talking about myself more than anyone else.
Yes.
I relate to the idea of like trying to flirt, but you just come off as mean.
I love this. I love
And
that for you.
thank you. Yes. I related to that, and I felt like, do you know what I mean? Like that they were
Yes.
doing that, like in trying to be sort of like teasing, and then it would just be like she would just realize that she had insulted him, and then she would have to kind of like reel it back in.
Right.
I felt like that happened a number of times.
Right. And the difference was like I agree with you in Going by Coastal in both storylines. Like one, like it was a little bit of a slow burn, but they were like into each other and it was sexy. And the other one, like her West Coast one, it was like they were just into each other right away and going for it. So it was
Right.
different than this. I agree.
Yes.
Yeah, totally. Another thing that happens at the very beginning is when she's deciding to like do this and she goes and she's kind of nervous. She kind of reconnects and touches base with her crew from home. And she's
Yes.
nervous and her friend's like, what does your dad always say? Go crazy, be bold. What does he say? Have some chutzpah. And then she's like, the summer of chutzpah. So this becomes like her summer of chutzpah where she decides to just like be a drop bolder, have the sexy bathing suit on hand. She doesn't know what's going to happen. And one other key difference with Going by Coastal and this, but this just also has to do with maybe the character that the authors were writing and possibly even who the authors were, is that the characters in Going by Coastal were very privileged, and the main character in Going by Coastal was very privileged. Like she's going to LA, she's going to all the restaurants, she's doing whatever, like she's just like finances are not an issue, and
Right.
it just doesn't it doesn't come up here. Like she needs the summer job. At that first party that we were talking about where they played the cheese game, someone mentions the Barbanels are golden doors. And she's like, wait, what? Golden doors, huh? And she's almost
Right.
like immediately embarrassed because she's like, this is why she's here. She hears golden doors. She's literally here to get connected to golden doors. I'm like, why so interested? And she's like, I think we're family friends or something. And then they're like, oh, do you like Noah? But she doesn't even know who Noah Barbanel is at that point. And there's a girl there who's like, I actually have a catering gig there tomorrow night. Do you want to join me? Do you want to see if I can get you a catering gig there too? But like, she's down for a catering gig, because she wants to snoop at Golden Door. She's not doing the catering gig for any other reason, but also like this is someone who needs to work.
Totally.
And she's very aware of seeing all of the privilege in Nantucket and that she's different than them. She's not someone who summers there. She's someone who's working there for the summer. It's a little bit different.
Yeah. And there's totally like a sort of upstairs, downstairs vibe then that ensues because she meets Noah, and then they start to develop like a friendship and and a flirtation at the same time. But it's very clear to her that she's sort of like not from his world. And then that starts to parallel the story that they start to unfold with her grandmother and his grandfather, where it turns out, spoiler alert, that like her grandmother was sort of taken in by the Barbanel family as a young child and basically like somewhat adopted by them and sort of raised by Noah's great grandmother, I guess, and great grandparents. Which is like crazy to Abby because she never knew anything about this. She never knew about this sort of a childhood that her grandmother had. She never knew about that her grandmother ever set foot on Nantucket. So this is all just like secret life of her grandmother that she never knew about, but it's paralleling her own experience.
Exactly. This whole part of the book that Molly is describing is woven in throughout the book, these letters and the unfolding of this story. I cannot imagine a family secret so deep that you didn't know that your grandma came in on the kinder transport and was raised by a family of New Yorkers who summered in Nantucket? I just don't see
Right.
it. And I know that there's big secrets. And I also know that survivors often just don't share about that. I've seen this firsthand. I know that that's true.
Right. They really kept things like
I
they
know
sort of, right.
they couldn't talk about it, but the childhood in New York part and the summers in Nantucket, it's just I can't imagine. But so there's this whole there's this whole romance that's being unfolded with these letters, and Noah is in denial about the letters and angry at the beginning. The way that they initially meet is that she sort of snoops her way into a room in the house, and Noah like walks in there like, I don't know, look with a flower looking for a vase or something, or maybe that was just his cover. Maybe he came in for a second to get a breather away from his family. I can't remember now. But
Right.
he's like, "What are you doing here? Are you a thief?" And she's like, I'm a cleaner. He's like, "Where are your cleaning supplies?" Like, they have this initial meet cute in a room in the giant estate of his family's estate, Golden Doors. But um, something comes up. She mentions the letters. Gets very angry and wants to protect his family at all costs, and feels that this story coming out, that there was a romance, that that there was any way that his grandpa had feelings or wrote letters to any woman other than his grandma, was that whole thing's horrifying to Noah, and he really wants to protect his family, and he feels very upset. But then he's also intrigued by her, and so he's like, "Okay, let's meet tomorrow and talk more about this." And so, he meets her at the bookstore, and they spend time together, and then he meets her every day or every other day for the rest of the book. Where like they're like continuing to meet up and like do something and do more research, but at a certain point it shifts where he's now in it and wants to find answers too.
Right.
And secrets come out. He brings her around to her family. uh, the family gets involved. Like, it gets more and more and more layered while they find out more and more details about their grandparents and their romance, and also kind of fall for each other.
Right. This kind of like, I mean, I don't know, it's fun, but it's also very foreign to me, this kind of family that he's supposed to be a part of. It's like this sort of like almost like fake waspy family, but they're Jewish. I think I said this about Eight Nights of Flirting, actually. It's just that like, and then his whole attitude of like, I have to protect my family. My family is everything. I can't betray my family. It's just like,
It's like
this type of this type of Jewish family is not familiar to me, but maybe that's
So
it's
here's the
just
thing,
not.
like
Yeah.
here I put a lot of thought into this with Eight Nights of Flirting, and I actually am happy we're revisiting it, because I just think that the being set on Nantucket is the part that feels confusing, because I do think there's secular-ish or traditional but not orthodox-ish, very wealthy, just like old money, multi-generational wealth. For example, who may have homes in the Hamptons even.
Sure.
It's like where I grew up, many Jews had huge homes in the Hamptons, and those Jews kind of felt a little waspy at times. Like, there was something about that vibe that felt, definitely would feel unfamiliar to you. This,
Yes.
like, not exactly waspy, but a little, like, of
Right.
like a secular or culturally Jewish, but not observant, but culturally Jewish Jew with tremendous wealth. Like, I
Yep.
feel like there's Upper East Side Jews with this kind of wealth that have also a house in the Hamptons, that kind of a thing. Like, I do think that exists. And if it was written about an Upper East Side family with a house in the Hamptons, it would just feel like, oh, to me, I get this. The Nantucket part of it, because they are New Yorkers.
Right.
They are New Yorkers in the book, but they summer in Nantucket. And that's unusual. And when I asked Hannah Reynolds about that during Eight Nights of Flirting, she said that part was fictitious.
Right. Right. That like they could have existed, but they didn't actually exist.
Right,
Like
exactly.
no families exist like this, like a Jewish family connected to Nantucket.
Not like with this kind of multi-generational wealth and this Portuguese tie-in. It's like, think
Right.
about, for example, like this is would be something else, but you could see it where it's like a family with tremendous wealth from Brooklyn with a huge summer home in Deal. like Syrians, like that kind of
Yeah,
thing, like
yeah.
that it totally this particular kind of Jewish family that feels like there are a ton of Jews
Right.
where
If you
I
put them
grew
in
up.
Deal, I could picture
Oh,
them
for
much more
sure,
easily.
for
Right,
sure.
right,
Because
right.
also they were Portuguese, like they had a sort of
Yeah, they're Sephardic.
they were
Yeah,
Sephardic.
they describe the food they make sometimes, and it has like that. There was some good food descriptions in this
Very
book, by
good
the
food
way.
descriptions that felt like Moroccan, yummy, like gorgeous things of Moroccan couscous flecked with golden raisins.
Right, right, right. They had all that stuff.
Yum.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
And I could see that, but I think that there are tons of kind of
There was some. Sorry.
country club
Mm-hmm.
waspy type Jews out in Long
Yeah,
Island, out east, and I just think it's the Nantucket part that felt confusing.
I agree. Nantucket's a wild card. Right. There were also some cute, like summer, like flirting over ice cream scenes.
Yeah.
Ice cream is like a nice flirty summer food.
Ice cream is it's very flirty. You're sharing it, you're taking licks of
Yeah,
each
you're
other's
licking, it's
cones.
melting, totally. It's
So
dripping.
so sexy. It is. It's
Yeah,
perfect.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So it's a lot came up here also about Judaism in general. Like
Oh
she
my
also
God, yeah.
researches the shul in Nantucket and the Jewish community in Nantucket. And the way that it worked was that this rabbi came up on Fridays for the Jewish families in Nantucket, which that's totally believable. I could see that. I could see that happening in one of these beach towns
Totally.
where there's like
So
not enough of a community to have a full shul, but enough of a community for a rent-a-rabbi to come in for
yeah,
Shabbat.
yeah, yeah, totally. It's a great gig for them. They get to spend like a weekend on the beach.
Yeah, it's really good. Yeah.
I'll also say I did like because so you get to know as the book progresses and this whole history unfolds, you get to know like Edward Barbanel, who's the guy who wrote these steamy letters to Abby's grandmother, is now the like 90-year-old patriarch of the family, and has been married for decades to Noah's grandmother, who's not the woman he wrote these letters to. But I just like how it talks about their relationship. Like Noah's worried because his grandparents have been like on the rocks for a while. And I just feel like you don't often read about like 90-year-old couples who are on the rocks. Like I feel like usually the portrayal of couples who are that old and have been together for that long is either like a sort of like very cliche, like they're still madly in love, like type thing, or it's like a sort of a equally cliche, like they bicker all the time and sort of pick at each other. You don't hear about like, oh, they're 90 and they're still like having major issues and like ups and downs in their relationship. I don't know. I found that refreshing.
That, by the way, is such a good call. Right. I've never heard of a grandson or
Right.
grandchild at all thinking like, how are grandma and grandpa doing?
Right. How's that relationship of theirs? Like, no.
But he
But he doesn't question it. They're very like, I thought it was like a nice portrayal of older people who were like older, but still just like very vibrant, living very full emotional lives.
Yeah, human.
Yeah.
That's a really good point.
Thank
Noah
you.
Barbanel was very sexy.
Oh, yeah.
He
Totally.
was really hot and nice and smart. Sometimes he was a dick, actually. Sometimes he wasn't so nice, now that I think of it. At the beginning, he was giving a little bit of those, like, do you know who my father is vibes?
Right. But you need that. You need that to make it sexy. Because
Right.
then, like, she sort of breaks through that.
Right, because then it had to become, like, there's like an enemies to lovers type of thing happening at the beginning because
Right.
of that. But he
And a
really
little bit
was.
of like a Romeo and Juliet thing, because it's sort of like his family, sees her as a threat because she's sort of like bringing up this past that they don't want to think about, I guess.
Right. She also starts to really see him and get to know him and gets, in a very, by the way, I think presumptuous high schooler type way, or maybe just romance novel type way, kind of poking holes at his professional life and plan for his professional life. There's one very funny, he's going to Harvard. He's a grade above her and he's going to Harvard, and they have a whole conversation about, him being a legacy and the family donating, and he bristles at that, but then he sort of admits it. And he's like, she's like, what are you going to study? He's like, I'm going to study economy. And she's like, oh, do you want to do economy? which is really funny. And also, by the way,
Right.
very funny and timely because the Barbie movie just came out,
Mm-hmm.
and Ken in the Barbie movie just like does beach. Like he's not a lifeguard. Like he doesn't swim.
I see.
He
That's
just
funny.
does beach.
Right,
And,
right.
and it was one of the funniest parts of the movie. And so she's like, "Oh, do you want to do economy?"
Right.
And but
He's
then
like preppy rich boy Ken doll
right,
style.
right.
Yeah.
But then it's sort of kind of it's very clear that he's very interested in plants, botany, and she's
Yep.
sort of like, I don't understand. Why do you have to take? He feels pressure that he has to take over the Barbanel business. Why do you have to take over the Barbanel business? And in becoming closer and spending this whole summer together, she sort of pokes holes in his plan.
Right. Which is a little like,
Right. Is this just the stuff of YA books?
I think so. It's a little silly. It's like, oh, but your dream of being a botanist. Like, okay. You planted 4 plants with your grandmother one summer. Let's just
even at one
slow
point
down.
they go see the rabbi at one point though, Mal, and like he's like the rabbi's like, so you and those plants, I know you love those plants, like you'll be studying botany, right? And he's like, no,
I know you love botany. Right.
I'll be studying business. but like everyone knows Noah Barbanel as a plant loving green thumb.
Right. Who, alas, cannot pursue that passion because he must study economy.
Even though when they, but I could see this happening, especially with like a pretentious prep school kind of kid, but they had a conversation in the bookstore about books that felt very adult and sophisticated about, she wanted a book recommendation and she was like, what are your favorite books? And like, starts naming kind of like pretentious male authors. She's like David Foster Wallace, like Jonathan
Right.
Franzen, like she starts listing things and she's like, he probably reads this. Eye roll, her. She's rolling her eyes. I'm not rolling my eyes. She is. And and he's like, no, actually, and like lists a bunch of other authors, and then she makes a recommendation. I was like, I'm sorry, like maybe this is the case for kids going into Harvard, but like the summer before I was going into college, I'm just laughing at the person I was seeing that summer, and he
was not reading David Foster Wallace.
No, but I did have a friend, and he listens to the podcast, who was like. I can't even say. He's like, where does he live again? On the corner of Scumbag and Piece of Crap? I was like,
oh, man.
No, nice person, though. Nice person. Nice person, but wasn't reading David Foster Wallace.
Listen,
he
can't all be so highbrow.
Exactly.
That
would have been a great YA book. That was a fun summer.
And the point is, how believable. I mean, like, I get it. He's going to Harvard, whatever. He's the elite. But,
right.
Like, how many 17-year-olds are reading David Foster Wallace in their free time?
Right. And he even wasn't. He was like, no, and then listed the others who did. Like, but that scene felt like a little bit mature. But she was a book lover and a person who worked in bookstores back at home and then for the summer. So yeah, no, but he was sexy. Physically very attractive.
Totally. And then I also had like an moment when I realized that sort of like the other boy who she was flirting with to make him jealous was the love interest from 8 Nights of Flirting.
Right.
All of a sudden I was like, oh, it's Tyler. If you remember, those who read 8 Nights of Flirting or listen to us talk about it, Tyler was Shira Barbanel's longtime love interest in that book. And in this book, he's sort of like the hot other guy who Abby flirts with to make Noah jealous.
Yes. And then Shira's Tyler.
Yes. So
yeah, a lot of cuties in this book.
I was pleased with myself for remembering that tie-in. I felt good about it.
I am pleased too.
Mm-hmm.
Good. Don't know if I realized that. I think I thought it was Evan. There was a guy Evan in the book, even though I should have known better. I know it was Tyler. I was even talking about Tyler in this episode just now. During this conversation, I mentioned Tyler, but there was a guy.
You did.
Evan in this book. I don't know, some other waspy guy. That was always hanging around, and I was like, "Is Evan the guy?" I don't know. There was
right. You're right,
but you're right. It was Tyler. Totally. Yeah. I mean, she also kind of she has a kick-ass summer. Like she discovers The Secret. She creates a whole world for herself, a social network, because her mom's like, we're social beings. You can't be there alone just doing research. Like, you
Right.
need to make friends. And she's like, I totally did. Like,
Yeah,
she's
yeah, yeah. She did pretty easily. She like fell into a great group, very cute. Bonfires at the beach, also sexy. Like a nighttime beach with a bonfire. You can sneak off into the shadows.
and
Great.
they do like at
Sure.
parties. They're at parties. She's hanging out with her friends, or like they're on the 4th of July. She's out there with red, white, and blue face paint, having fun. Doing piggyback rides with her friends. There's carnival games. There's carnival games. Come on, get out of town. And then like on the side, like Noah will like see her and stop her, and they'll talk and have like a big thing, and then they make plans to see each other the next day. And then the friend's like, "What was that with you and Noah Barbanel?" But like the
Right.
reason why there are so many summer romance books about these summer beach towns, like right now, there's a series out called The Summer I Turned Pretty, based on a trilogy by Jenny Han. It's a YA trilogy, nothing Jewish about it, but
Okay.
it's like all that's there. Like there's beach parties, there's salmon colored shorts, there's carnival games, there's the Ferris wheel. Like there has to be, because all these
Oh, the
beach towns
Ferris wheel's great. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and it is so fun, and there's so much nostalgia there, but that's the
Yep.
way beach towns are. All of
Right.
them. There's an arcade. Like there's summer foods. There's
Right.
always the red, white, and blue 4th of July party, and there's always fireworks at it, and
Sure.
you see it recurring in all these books. But the thing is, like, so fun, so sexy, and in this case, so Jewish.
Totally. And Noah Barbanel even has like he contemplates how he's sort of self-conscious that he's kind of like he has all these other waspy friends, but they're like genuine wasps, and he's like the Jew wasp.
Right. He's aware of that. I definitely
Yeah.
highlighted that section. I'd love to be able to find it, but he's aware of feeling like he has to actually wear a mask and armor and dress waspy to fit in, because he's a Jewish guy in a waspy world. And that's interesting, and I'm sure that there are people who relate to that. I think that she has to put that in. Reynolds, the author, has to put that in, because this Nantucket thing is kind of rando. Because
Totally.
there are
Totally. And I do like, and I feel like this is true about like, there's something about the two of them relating over their Judaism, despite the fact that socioeconomically, I guess, and culturally, they've had very different lives and upbringings. They do have this commonality over their shared Judaism that sort of makes them feel familiar to each other, despite those differences.
totally. And also, it's not just that they're like secular Jews. Like she feels like a involved, committed, educated Reform Jew. Like she actually talks about belonging to a Reform synagogue at home.
Yep.
And so I agree with that. But I found the section. She's like, stand out how? And he says, oh, he said with a slight smile, in New York, I don't have to think about being Jewish at all. No one blinks if you mention Solomon Schechter or Simchat Torah or the JCC. I don't have to represent Judaism or even particularly be Jewish if I don't want to be, because other people are, and I could be non-religious and have critical debates. Here, sometimes I feel like I have to think about it more, make sure I'm not doing anything that'll add to a negative stereotype. He looked at me. Do you know what I mean? In my town, the Jewish community was so small I didn't feel like I had a match for either of Noah's experiences. I'd never felt surrounded by Jewish communities or references, but I'd also never really felt like I had to represent Judaism. Being Jewish was something my family did in private, but maybe that also made it easy since I never felt like I had to represent anything. A little. It sounds stifling. Anyway, so that's what you were talking about.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I
Yeah.
like that.
Me too. They definitely do connect over their Jewish identity, and it feels different than, in some of the books we read, it's like, I didn't know if they kept kosher, and I was like, Knit One Girl Too, there was just kind of like this, we felt like kind of like a strange missing, there's something about the tone, about the way that they
Yeah,
were
yeah,
talking
yeah.
about their Jewish identities felt off to us.
Yes, a little stilted. Yeah.
And I think some of the shtick in Jewish Summer Camp Mafia also,
Totally.
like it was so stereotypical, like, oh, you're wearing a ZBT hat, but like they're just sort of, their interaction and the way that Hannah Reynolds writes characters is just like feels
Yeah, it feels very fluid and real. Like I believed that connection despite all their differences.
Yeah.
It just felt like they recognized each other in that way. That I feel like Jewish people who know that those values and that lifestyle and like that milieu do recognize each other.
Yes, I totally agree. There's an issue of the necklace.
Uh-huh.
So she wants, in the letters,
Right.
her grandma wants this necklace back.
Right. And it seems like their whole relationship is at the end kind of pivots around him refusing to give it back or something like that.
Right. And Abby's like, what's the deal with this necklace? And Noah becomes very angry about the necklace, but that there is a situation with the necklace. And in the end, Edward Barbanel gets involved and everything's all out there. And I kind of don't want to spoil it if any of our readers are going to read The Summer of Lost Letters. Like, if you're going on a beach vacation and want a beachy read, it's going to be, summery and sweet, but also have elements of history in it. Like, I recommend this book. This is a good book.
Totally. It was delightful. And it's really it's rewarding because it does tease out that will they or won't they for so long that when they finally do, it's very satisfying.
Yes, totally.
Which I think is a great thing for a summer read. It's you kind of know they will, but you're still come on, come on. And then it finally happens. She did that really well, I thought.
She really did. I mean, the burn was slow.
Yeah.
You
stuck with it. Yeah.
She did it totally, very, very well. But something kind of pivotal, and the necklace kind of gets wrapped up in a way that I felt really great about. I loved that ending and tie-in, but
totally.
I don't want to spoil the necklace thing for our readers. So, because you may read it, and it's almost like, I really love and respect a book if I'm not giving it all away because I want people to read it. And so
Absolutely.
That's how I feel about this book. I'm not going to spill the beans on what happens with her Oma's necklace.
And I mean, it's like we always say, you don't have to read the books to listen to our podcast, but it's like, if you're not going to read the book, then it doesn't matter what happened to the necklace because you're not reading the book.
If you want to know what happened to the necklace, ask us. We'll tell you.
Yeah.
It's a good one.
We can offline. We're happy to share.
It was good. It was really, really good.
It was a really good ending. It was satisfying. Like I said, satisfying, I feel like is my word for this book.
Totally. I really enjoyed it. And it was
sexy.
really
Sexy.
layered. It was sexy.
Yeah.
It was sexy. It was romantic. It was layered. She was funny.
Totally.
She was funny and smart.
Mm-hmm.
She was kind of really going for this thing, but not in a selfish way. It's like once she started to care about Noah, and then his feelings became important to her in a way that felt very YA though. Like in that Jewish summer camp mafia thing where someone you just met, all of a sudden but you have to be a botanist, that kind of thing that feels but I like that.
Yeah, no, that's cute. It was cute.
And
because you do see the world in that sort of, there's a black and whiteness to the way you see the world when you're 17 that I think, it felt believable. That's what I was saying. They were mature 17-year-olds, but they felt 17, and as they should.
Completely. Yeah, really great.
Great.
And it's nice that then we can go back to 8 Nights of Flirting. I'm sure I'll reread it at some point and check and see how Abby and Noah are doing.
Right. I'm much more invested in them now as a couple. I didn't really pay attention to them in 8 Nights of Flirting.
Exactly. In 8 Nights of Flirting, though, I do remember that they weren't sharing a room because I think that Abby was sharing a room with Shira Barbanel.
Oh, yeah. But then wouldn't she sneak to Noah's room?
I think so.
Interesting. What's that about?
I know what that's about.
What, the family? The family honor?
Yeah, you can't share a room when you're 17 or 18 in a family's house. You're still kind of a kid.
Okay. They were both in whatever. Okay.
Sometimes you do share a room. Sometimes you don't. Depends on the family.
Sure.
But if you don't share a room, you still are sharing a bed for half the night.
Right. I could definitely, this is a family that would have.
You wake up in your own room.
Right.
But for at least 6-7 hours, you're in the other room.
Yes. And I think that was a part of the plot line of 8 Nights of Flirting.
Right, because I remember a scene in 8 Nights of Flirting where they were doing each other's makeup. I think Abby was in that scene.
That sounds right.
Yeah.
That sounds right.
So yeah, she's a great author. I'm curious if she's working on anything now.
Yeah.
We've read some really, I mean, these are impressive writers, and it's really cool. She definitely grew up going to Nantucket. She had told me last time when I was talking to her
Huh.
about 8 Nights of Flirting, and she loved Nantucket, and so it's like something she knew well, and knew she wanted to write about, which is why it's set there. Um, and there were tie-ins. Like, she did a lot of research, and because there are tie-ins to like this whaling community and Portugal, and there are Jewish families from Portugal,
Right.
and how it's like on the same latitude line as the Azores in Portugal, and she sort of felt like this connection this could be. So the Barbanels didn't exist, but they could.
Totally. And I think like I like that it's sort of history is really woven in a way that it doesn't feel sort of pedantic. Like it flows as part of the story.
Totally. I really don't know the history of this Kinder transport.
Yeah, I didn't either.
But it's like, when you're a kid and you learn history, and then you're older and a parent and hear about something like a 4-year-old was sent over alone on a boat and was taken in by a family. It's like, what? And I know
Right.
that that's what was happening. I understand. It's very hard to wrap your head around.
Right.
Do your kids
But
know about
right.
the Holocaust yet?
Yeah, I think they do. I mean, at least the older ones do. Yeah. Do yours?
Yeah. No, not yet. But the other day, it was just 10 minutes that I wasn't around. But Mitch goes to pick up Binny from an after school, like from her cheer class. And I hear the garage door open. So I run out to say hi because I hadn't seen her all day. And I open the back seat, and she's like staring at me. She's like, "Do you know what happened?" And I was like, I don't know what you're talking about. So I don't know if I know what happened. And then I hear Mitch say like, "Mama knows." Yes, Mama knows that story. She's like, "Daddy told me something I wish he never told me." And I was like, "Oh, I don't know what you're talking about." She's like, "Daddy says you know." I was like,
Oh gosh.
But I don't know what you're talking about. So I trust him. I know. If he's saying I know, I know. You have to fill me in. And she's like, basically describes September 11th. She's like, "Did you know?"
Aw.
And she was really haunted by it. Like a few hours later, she was going to bed. She was like, "I think I'm recovered." And her leg had been hurting. I was like, "Oh, your leg feels better now?" She's like, "No, I feel recovered from that story Daddy told me. I think I can go to sleep." Like, she was really
Oh,
upset.
wow. Yeah.
Anyway, so that night I'm catching up with Mitch, and I'm like, "Wait, what happened that made you tell her?" Like, just in that car ride home, he explains why. And then, as a joke, but also not really, I was like, "When are you going to tell her about the Holocaust?" And he was like, "Well, actually, I was about to, but instead I pivoted." And like, he was really, so I guess it'll be soon. But I feel like our generation and us learning about the Holocaust feels different than us teaching our kids about it.
Why?
In terms of in terms of timing. Like, I think that we were,
Oh,
I mean,
we learned about it younger, you're saying?
I think so.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think I also I know in Israel they teach kids very graphically about the Holocaust super young. Like they're showing them at camp, they're showing them videos of I don't know what, trains, all kinds of things. Cause it's just very, first of all, they just have I think that they have a different attitude towards sheltering kids from sort of the facts of the world.
Yeah, of course. Like someone they know is in the army. Yeah.
Right. But anyway, I'm not sure how we got onto this.
We got onto this because of the Kinder transport.
Yes, Kinder transport. I think I knew about this stuff I guess by Binny's age, 6 or 7, I think I knew about that stuff.
Yeah, I think it's coming.
Right. All right. Well,
I think it's coming.
Prepared.
Yep, I'm prepared.
So is she. She recovered. She recovered pretty well.
She did. She recovered, and now she knows. Okay, we recommend this one.
Yes, we recommend it. It was great. And let's talk about what's coming up next episode because
okay, great. Something exciting, Malia. Tell us.
The exciting thing that's coming up is that we have a guest co-host, a guest on our podcast who is very exciting. Her name is Sarah Tuttle Singer. Many of our fans may know her because she's a writer and a sort of a personality in the Jewish world and the Jewish blogosphere and the Jewish just world of writing about life. And I think about romance also. I have her bio here. She is the new media editor at Times of Israel. And she's also the author of a book called Jerusalem Drawn and Quartered. Her bio says she was raised in Venice Beach, California on Yiddish lullabies and civil rights anthems. She now lives in Jerusalem with her 3 kids, where she climbs roofs, explores cisterns, opens secret doors, and talks to strangers and writes stories about people. Sarah also speaks before audiences left, right, and center through the Jewish Speakers Bureau, asking them to wrestle with important questions while celebrating their willingness to do so. She also loves whiskey and tacos and chocolate chip cookies and old maps and foreign coins and discovering new ideas from different perspectives. Sarah is a work in progress. And
Okay, I love her bio.
yeah, her bio is really great, and I think that there's a lot to talk about just with with her just from that. And we actually, William and I met her in Israel the summer that we got married there. We sort of like randomly, like basically, we're walking with her on the street in Tel Aviv and just sort of introduced ourselves.
I lived with you guys in Israel that summer.
You did, yes.
That was so much fun.
That was a great summer.
It was really fun. There should be books about things like that. That was really fun.
Yeah, we had some romantic. We had respective romantic moments.
We did.
Over that summer.
We did.
Yeah. You know, some they were funny. They were.
they were.
Some more repeatable than others, I guess. But anyway, that same summer we met Sarah Telsinger and then discovered that she was this sort of just like had this really cool journalist persona. She writes about a lot of the issues we talk about: relationships, sexuality, a lot about Jewish identity and those topics. And she's going to come on and talk to us and read a book with us.
I'm so excited. So the book I can't wait for this. The book we're planning on reading it. Possibly it changes, but probably we're reading The Intimacy Experiment.
Yep.
By Rosie Danon. And do you want to hear should we read about The Intimacy Experiment quickly?
Yeah.
Okay. Naomi Grant has built her life around going against the grain. After the sex-positive startup she co-founded becomes an international sensation, she wants to extend her educational platform to live lecturing. Unfortunately, despite her long list of qualifications, higher ed won't hire her. Ethan Cohen has recently received 2 honors. LA Mag nominated him as one of the city's hottest bachelors, and he became rabbi of his own synagogue. Low on both funds and congregants, the executive board of Ethan's new shul hired him with the hopes that his non-traditional background will attract more millennials to the faith. They've given him 3 months to turn things around, or else they'll close the doors of his synagogue for good. Naomi and Ethan join forces to host a buzzy seminar series on modern intimacy, the perfect solution to their problems, until they discover a new one, their growing attraction to each other. They've built the syllabus for love's latest experiment, but neither of them expected they'd be the ones putting it to the test.
That's a pretty elaborate plot line.
It really is.
I like it. And I think Sarah is from LA originally.
So good. That's so
perfect. It's perfect.
I love a hot LA rabbi as our hero.
Absolutely.
As the love interest.
Totally.
I love this the sex positive queen. Really cool.
What does that startup involve? I'm curious to learn.
I think maybe she was a former sex worker. I can't exactly remember the whole thing. It's also in a series. It's book 2 of a book called The Roommate, but I think this is a total standalone. I don't think we have to read The Roommate.
Great. I'm excited. And I'm excited to hear what Sarah thinks about it. I think it's going to be a really fun episode.
I can't wait. I'm psyched.
Awesome.
Great. All right, everyone. Hope you enjoyed. This episode was brought to you by Hanukkah Pong. Menorah-shaped beer pong, available all year on Amazon, but perfect for Hanukkah, which is gonna be coming up. Make those lists.
Sooner than you think. Don't let it sneak up on you.
Don't.
And Rachel, don't we have other sponsors waiting in the wings?
They're waiting in the wings. I feel like I don't want to talk so much about them because they haven't given me the script yet or the code for our listeners. Okay. And if you're listening, Michael, you got to email us. We have a sponsor waiting in the wings. It's Nature's Path. But I don't want to tell you too much about Nature's Path until we have a code for you all to get it discounted.
Okay, well, big things are happening here.
Big things are happening, but I just you can eat Nature's Path cereal in the meantime and see if you're excited about it and if you want to get a discount code. But I'm going to have a bet going with him about how many of our listeners are going to actually subscribe to, Get Nature's Bad cereal. And I really want our listeners to prove him wrong. And I want them to make money. But we don't have that yet. The deal has not been signed. It's just waiting in the wings. So, Michael, if you're listening, hook it up.
Please, let's get it going here. All right.
But Hanukkah Pong is signed, sealed, delivered.
Ready and waiting for you.
They sponsor us. They're ready and waiting, and plenty on Amazon available.
Wonderful.
Thanks, Mullen. Thanks, William, our amazing producer.
Good night.
Good night.
Yeah, I forget what I do now. I export it.